This shows us the range of Moche portrait heads. I'd like to pick out three that are typical of what we think of Moche portrait heads, and that would include the two on the left and the one on the top right. These three individuals are youthful male figures. They seem proud and energized. They're shown basically in their prime, and probably they are Moche lords who are also warriors. They are elite. They have elaborate headbands or turbans wrapped around their heads. Some of them have appendages in addition to the turban. If we go up here, we aren't sure, but we think this is probably a plume of feathers that would have decorated the top of the head of this Moche lord. It is here attached to the stirrup spout. The spout portion has been broken, but we can tell pretty much what it originally looked like. These individuals also tend to have earplugs, which is an indication of status and rank, and they also, some of them at least, have face paint, which probably again is a reference to their elite position in society. Mostly, I am impressed by their vigor, their tilted head, which seems to make them look a little confident, very masculine, very strong, very sure of themselves. In contrast to these rather traditional Moche images, we do find a range of other heads that are depicted, like the two at the bottom on the right. These individuals show faces. The one located right here, let's start with this, with eyes closed, and that is probably one of a number of images the Moche create of an individual with an infirmity or something that is deformed. A disability, we perhaps would say today, but to the Moche, that mark the individual as special, giving that individual special skills. And in this case, because the person is blind, it would give the individual insight, sight beyond the visible world. And because of that, that individual might indeed have been a shaman. The same is probably true for the figure in the bottom right corner, the figure in black and white. This individual appears to have suffered from a skin disease, perhaps a parasitic skin disease, but has survived. And as we'll see later in Moche shamanism, that might have been viewed as an indication of his special qualities, and therefore something that would have marked him with a potential to be a shaman. This is another Moche head, and again, to some extent it is a type. Yes, it's an individual, but I also believe it to be a type. And it is a depiction of one of those warrior figures, one of those warrior lords who's old. In this particular case, we see on his face lines down here that represent wrinkles. We can also see that the cheek has fallen. It's lost its ability to hold the youthful form that the man once had. His eyes also are sunken, almost getting to a skeletal suggested form, in fact. So he is characterized as someone who is late in life. The image, we're getting a lot of views of it also, and you can see the profile way in which that stirrup spout would accent the line of the tilted head, which accents a sense of pride, I think, shared perhaps with some of those other Moche lords, lord warriors that we've already looked at. A sense of confidence as well as a sense of pride, and perhaps with age, a sense of accomplishment. Well, we think there are depictions of Moche individuals who were elite and were also warriors, and we think that their goal was to go into battle to capture a live opponent. We do believe that this, based upon images on ceramic ware, would have taken place one-on-one. So it would be two individuals facing each other. One of them would be a winner and one of them would be a loser. The loser would become the sacrificial victim. If you need a parallel, you can think of medieval knights jousting, or perhaps you can think of gladiators. So the winner, particularly if the winner kept on winning over his lifetime, would have continually achieved a great deal of fame. After each victory, it is possible that the winner actually commemorated the event with the creation of another portrait head that could explain the number of portraits of single individuals in their lifetime. The loser would become a part of the sacrificial offerings, the sacrifice ceremony that was one of the basic rituals of the Moche, probably considering it to be an honor to do so. And we do have images of the next step if you are a loser. This is what the figure would then look like. These images are of sacrificial victims. They have been stripped of their weapons. They have been stripped of their clothing, which takes away their identification. Their earplugs are gone. Also, you can see holes in the ears, so that everything of status and rank is stripped away literally from them. The rope around the neck is the biggest symbol telling us that they are sacrificial victims, but the figure also is bound from behind. We do believe that the loser in these contests would then become a sacrificial victim, offering his own blood, essentially, to promote the welfare of the community in Moche. We do find vessels very much like the ones I've shown you that have been broken and placed in burial sites that contained the bones, the disarrayed bones of sacrificial victims. Look to the upper left-hand side of my screen and you can get a look at that. So we're pretty comfortable in believing that this is the process that took place. Sacrifice among the Moche would have, generally speaking, been on a much smaller scale than any kind of Aztec sacrifice. However, as the El Nino events picked up, it is possible that the number of sacrificial victims also went up in numbers. The Moche portrait heads, then, would have been produced in large numbers probably paid for by the Lord whose image was reproduced. And as a result of that, we have tons of these. The slide on the lower left just gives you a view into one of the many storage shelves in a Peruvian museum. That also promoted the use of molds in order to create these in large scale and be able to distribute them to, I'm going to say, supporters, perhaps even fans of the Moche Lord who might have supported him with cheering him on during the battle. In the upper right, I have some gold examples of ear spools which we have that have survived from the Moche, as opposed to the wooden ones that we believe might more commonly have been worn, which also would have disintegrated over time. Briefly, let me show you some additional proof of this. We do have depictions of Moche warriors complete with mace and shield. There's one lower left. Actually, there are three across the bottom. And we also have images of Moche warriors kind of thunking on the head an opponent, an individual opponent, presumably bringing that opponent back for purposes of sacrifice. In the upper left, we have a depiction of a goblet being passed to a masked figure, and we are assuming that that goblet contained the blood of a sacrificial victim.